let me ask this, because I had 200 questions prepared for you. They're now 100 questions because everything already happened. But what's going on with James Harden, Chopz? What's the scoop?
So I mean, the Rockets are expecting James Harden to be in training camp, and he clearly made it known to people within Houston that he wanted to be on a contender somewhere else, and but at the end of the day, he's under contract for 2 more years, and there just was not a viable trade out there. Like you talk about Brooklyn, talk about Philadelphia. Those are the 2 places that I reported were his preferred destinations if he were moved to a contender elsewhere. But you really look at it, there's not, for Brooklyn, there's just not the pieces necessary on that team to get a deal done, something that Houston would feel is applicable for a guy like James Harden. And then when you look at Philadelphia, they've made it clear that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is their future, is their duo going into the season and their long-term over the next few years. And so if Ben Simmons is not in a deal with Philadelphia, I don't think talks ever really progressed on James Harden. I think you had several teams inquire, like the teams I just mentioned. I think, the Warriors at one point made a call in for James Harden. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the requisite pieces, it's a moot point because Houston has the leverage. He's under contract for 2 more years. I do think that will not be a situation that plays out in the short term here over the next, whatever the case, if fans want to think week to month, the next month or so. I really think, as it stands right now, James Harden is going to start the year there.
So I guess, there's a lot of follow-ups we could have for what you just said there. I guess the first follow-up I'll say or ask is that basically the Rockets are going to demand a superstar back if they're going to deal James Harden.
They've made it known to teams that have inquired and have had interest that we want a star level or a high level rotation player in the deal, possibly other young players, and just as many draft picks, future draft picks, pick swaps as possible. And so when you set the bar that high, guys, it just becomes a deal. It becomes unlikely that you're going to find something that fits that price point. Now, could that price point change as the year goes on? Next summer, potentially, there's no doubt about it. So I think the Rockets' preference still is that we want to see how this team looks as the year goes on. How does Steven Salas, their new head coach, do with James Harden leading the group? They signed Christian Wood as a free agent. They brought in DeMarcus Cousins on a non-guaranteed contract. And from everything I'm told, DeMarcus Cousins, he worked out for the Rockets last week a couple times. And I had one person tell me he hit 23s at one point in his workout. And so as long as he's healthy, as long as he's fit, which I'm told he's in good shape, but as long as that is the case, let's see this real quick.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Tom's looking at his phone.
If you got to tweet something, go ahead.
Yeah, tweet it. Get it out.
If you got to do it, do it. Go ahead, man.
No, I got nothing.
Okay.
I wish I had something. But as long as DeMarcus Cousins can stay healthy, I think he will be a piece for this team. But I do believe that the price point that Houston has right now is it's going to take a lot.
Did anybody make an offer that they were like maybe? Did it even get to a maybe, or was it none of them were even close?
From what I'm told, none of them were even close.
Okay.
I don't believe the Rockets even considered it. Russell Westbrook, that might be that's another
what's up with
conversation,
Russ? What's up with Russ?
So the Rockets engaged with several teams on draft week, free agency week, it's whatever you want to call it. They talked to Washington about John Wall, which I reported. They talked to Cleveland, I'm told.
Relax, pal. Relax.
No, not you, Shams.
No, not you, Shams. Sorry, I'm talking about Chopz. The Cavaliers, the Cavaliers lunatic down here needs to calm down.
Telling me to relax.
But I think, again, even their price for Russell Westbrook, when the conversations went to Washington, I'm told the Rockets wanted multiple other assets, whether it's draft compensation, young players. And so when you set the price that high, even for Russell Westbrook, and if it's not met, the Rockets are fine going into the season and playing it out. I don't think that they ever felt like there was a sense of urgency on them at any point.
All right, so final Rockets follow-up, and then we can move on to, I guess, other pieces or players. How toxic is it going to get down there if Harden and Westbrook are on the roster for the next 2-3 months before whenever the trade deadline is?
I mean, it's just a reality of whatever this, if that's the situation, that's the situation. At the end of the day, those two players have the ability, of course, to make it, if you want, however you want to call it, ugly, toxic. But to my knowledge, like ownership, they want to compete still. They want to build a team. Getting a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, going out and getting Christian Wood. They ended up making, financially being able to open up the availability to go out and use the mid-level exception, be able to go out and spend for a guy like Christian Wood. Those things were done because they want to go and compete. And so I think ownership's tried to make the point to both James Harden and Russell Westbrook, at least on indirectly, that, hey, we're trying to compete and we're going to go get a guy like Christian Wood. We're going to go get a guy like DeMarcus Cousins to come here and try to compete. But listen, at the end of the day, we've all seen how different trade requests are handled, how different players handle situations. How these guys enter training camp, enter the regular season and preseason is going to define how this could end up going.
So are the Nets are they like done trying to find, was Harden the only like upgrade they were looking for, or are the Nets going to still look around for another, like a third star with KD and Kyrie?
I think the Nets are always going to be active. They were one of the teams that had a level of interest in Drew Holiday. They pursued that. But at the end of the day, like, their price point, even for New Orleans, their price point on Drew Holiday, this all comes down to the team that's trading the player and their position and where they stand.
Drew Holiday price point was crazy.
It was a bevy of draft picks, and that just was not a position that Brooklyn was in. They didn't want to give up, 2-3 first-round picks, multiple pick swaps. That just was not the position. Milwaukee obviously wanted to make that move, and they clearly want to go for it this year, and they needed that second, third star on this team. And so, but Brooklyn looked into it, but at the end of the day, they did not want to trade a guy like Karis LeVert, I'm told, for Drew Holiday. And for Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, these guys view Karis LeVert as a very significant part of this team. And they, clearly New Orleans got a pretty substantial package for Drew Holiday.
How do you feel about that info, Young Zion, our resident Nets fan?
I mean, I'm cool with that. I trust Karis LeVert as the third option too, but I would say, to Chopz, do you ever see Bradley Beal becoming an option? Let's say if
he can't get off this Bradley Beal.
I'm just saying that's another option that's been tossed around in rumors. Do you ever see that coming?
in what Reddit message board?
Hey, it's out there. If the Wizards get off to a slow start and don't see themselves being successful this season, can that possibly happen? Let's get Bradley Beal.
It's literally just up to it's up to Bradley Beal and that franchise. But yeah. I haven't gotten a sense that Beal wants to be anywhere but Washington. And the Wizards have said time and time again, whether it's publicly or privately, that they want Bradley Beal to be one of their faces of the franchise. And it's clear that he, last year he took a step forward. He averaged 30 points a game. Could easily make the case that he was one of the best players in the league. He should be an All-NBA consideration this year, going into the year. But if that's your franchise player, if that's one of your guys, unless there's a fork in the road, unless one of the sides forces the issue, I don't expect, at least not in the short term, anything on Beal.